Well, I had intended to sit underneath this to do a little video, but there are a lot of wasp and hornets nests and spiders everywhere. And even though I don't really see a wasp or a hornet or a spider at the moment, I know that the moment I sit down, I'm gonna end up with one on me, or I won't be able to concentrate the entire time I'm talking. So I just kind of changed my mind. So we're gonna go over here by this tree instead. I'm at Burns Park in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and it is August the 17th, 2024. My mom was diagnosed with cancer last November, and so last November I came to be with her, and when I left after about a month, you had a good report from the doctor. They said that her cancer was responding well to the chemo and that the tumors had shrunk significantly. So I thought it was okay. She seemed to be doing well as one can be, having stage 4, because she was at stage 4. And so everything seemed fine, but long story short, she ended up with a blood infection that was apparently caused by the port that they put in this area. And because of the infection, they had to stop the chemotherapy. And that was for about a month. So she went about a month without the treatments, and that was all it took. And it spread, for lack of a better term, like wildfire. And it ended up metastasizing, and then she was no longer a candidate for chemo at this point. So I came back immediately. I saw her in the hospital the day I arrived. She was still coherent, and she knew who I was, and she hugged me with strength, with a little bit of strength. She told me how much she missed me and my husband, and that was the last coherent moment that I had with her, because shortly after that, about 40 minutes later, they transferred her from the hospital after just having a blood transfusion back to the hospice center. And that was the last coherent moment I had with my mom. She did not really recognize people very much after that. Just, it kind of came and went. She was just, every now and then she would be a little lucid enough to eat food and take medications, enough to be a little grumpy, which, that's her style. So it was wonderful to actually see her be a little grumpy here and there. And so she died a week later. I thought she had more time, but she didn't. She held on for me to get here, and she died a week later. She actually died also 3 days after my sister-in-law's birthday, 3 days before my brother Shane's birthday, and 4 hours after his son, my little nephew Shane's birthday. So by the grace of God, she held on for all of these moments, and it's like she didn't want to die on someone's birthday. She always worried about us, and I think up until her last moment she was worried about us. And she died in my aunt's house where she was staying, and she died with me and my brother and my daughter Jerica present in that moment, and we were with her up until the end, for the most part. And it was very difficult. I've never seen anything like that before. I'm not going to describe it. You can Google things like that, but I am making a point. And that has been, this is day 17 since my mom died. We buried her last Thursday. I think it was on a Thursday. I've already lost track of time for the most part. And I have been, like anyone would be, in deep mourning and sadness and a lot of waves of depression and despair. And why my mom? Why my mom? We all go through that at some point when we lose a loved one. But it was before a little difficult to be in the house because she died there. And it was even more difficult to go into the room where she died. But I have since started sleeping in that room because I told myself in a roundabout way that I'm not going to let this conquer me. My mom would not want this for me. And she would actually want the opposite. So that's what I started to do. My aunt got a new bed in there and everything, and I started sleeping on it. And I've had many days and moments of just looking at little things in the house, and things where, like in the bathroom, for instance, where she used to have all of her stuff on the counter. There was so much stuff on the countertop that you really, you couldn't put anything else there. And her shampoo bottles are still in the bathroom, in the shower. So every time I go in there, I see those shampoo bottles, and I see that counter that is now empty. And I would get very depressed and just ask all of those questions. But at the same time, I have Jesus in my heart, and I am taking it a lot differently than I would have even 2 years ago. So by the grace of God, with the love of Christ, I have been able to get through this. Whereas I know I would have otherwise been distraught, a mess. I would not have been able to stand up at her funeral and read her eulogy that I wrote. It took me like 3 days to write. I wouldn't have been able to get through it without Christ. And so this whole situation got me to thinking that my mom, even though she loved her life, she loved me, my brothers, and her grandkids, she loved her family, she loved her friends, she loved her many pets that she had throughout her life, she loved her plants. She had a hard life, but she, you really wouldn't know how hard it was just by being around her, because she laughed a lot. She always laughed, and that was one of the key points that people pointed out that they missed the most about my mom, was her joyful, jolly laughter. And that will definitely be missed. I will miss so many things about my mom, everything about my mom, because where I had 48 years to make memories with her, August 1st was the last memory that I will ever have, because that is the day that she died. And that was part of my eulogy, that I don't want to look at that day as a day of loss or sadness, despair. I don't want to let it get to me in that way. I want to celebrate that day, because she gave me so much. She gave other family, my brothers and my nieces and nephews, so much of her. She was like a rock. She was a little bit of the glue, or a lot of the glue, that held us all together. And half the time we really didn't realize that, but she was, and I'm really seeing that a lot more now. But the main point of this episode today is that I just wanted to talk about how I started to feel like I was being selfish, that I was sad. Every time I would look at a picture of her, I would start to cry, or I would get angry, and I would feel a little bit slighted and ask those questions that so many people tend to ask. Why my mom? Why someone who didn't hurt anyone and who a lot of people loved, and someone who helped a lot of people. Why her? And of course, I would never wish anybody else death. I'm not saying that I said to myself, why her but not this person? But I did kind of generalize it, as a lot of us do when we lose someone we love very much. And I just said, why her? And not somebody who hates life and hates everybody and is awful to people. Although I don't want that to happen to somebody else either. But it was just that question that we all ask. And I just started to feel selfish. Because although it is sad to not have my mom in my life anymore, to go to the flea markets and the yard sales, and to drive the back roads to Gruce Ferry Lake, so many things that we did together, or just hanging out at her, or wherever she was living at the time, and just talking about random things. And you start to grasp for all those moments when the person is gone. You start looking for the tiniest thing to give you some sense of normalcy, like, is she still there? And you want to relive a moment or moments, and you don't want them to fade. You don't want them to go away. And I've done that so many times. I would try to hear her laughter or picture her smile without looking at a photo. And I just started to feel like they were getting more and more distant. And the reason why is because I was so sad about it, instead of being joyful that she is no longer in pain. And I know a lot of people hate that. They don't want to hear that when a loved one dies and you tell them, but she's no longer hurting. They don't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that, for a little while. And in the past, when people that I love died, I didn't want to hear that. I don't know why. I just didn't. But it is so true that she is no longer hurting. She, like I said, she struggled a lot to raise me and my brothers alone. My dad left when we were very young, and she essentially raised us by herself. And she had help from family and friends from time to time, but generally it was just the four of us. And I never realized really what she went through, and how hard it was for her to, sometimes I remember her working 3 jobs, and I don't know how she did it, but she managed somehow. And I didn't realize all of this until later in life, when I had kids of my own and ended up raising, just like her, raising 3 kids by myself. She had a lot of health problems as well. This particular cancer, she was actually diagnosed with it probably back in 2000, between 2008 and 2010, somewhere around there. She had good reports, checkups, all these years. And so many times we hear about how the cancer someone has been free from for many, many years, it comes back. And when it does, it comes back with a vengeance. And that's what happened, because it was the same cancer that she was diagnosed with that many years ago. So, but even setting the cancer aside, she had health problems. She was overweight, but she was on a lot of medication for high blood pressure and different hormone-related problems, and just so many health problems. And I can recall just thinking back to all the times I talked to her, and one of the things that she always talked about or mentioned was a doctor's appointment or a test being done, a new medicine that she was on for a new ailment that she had just been diagnosed with. And I remember being in her house a few times and looking at this drawer full of pills that she was taking, and I just couldn't understand how one person can ingest that many pills, and then on top of that, how are they even working? That's a side note, but the point is that she had a lot of problems, and you know, she liked to work in the garden, she liked to work outside, she liked to do things with her hands. She also had terrible arthritis in her hands to where her fingers were crooked, and she did monogramming for a living in the last several years of her life. She actually, right before she was diagnosed this last November, she found a new job doing monogramming, and she loved it, and she really enjoyed the people that she worked with, and her boss was very kind, and she was just overjoyed about this job. And it was just kind of heartbreaking that just a couple of months after she started, I think it was months, it might have even just been weeks after she started this new job, she couldn't work anymore because of the cancer. That was really heartbreaking to me. So again, I was getting around to making a point. She's not, like they always say, because it's so true, she's not hurting anymore. She's not waking up every day and having to worry about taking this batch of pills and this other batch of pills at noon and then this other cup of pills before bed, and doing it every single day. She doesn't have to go to doctor's appointments anymore, and she doesn't have to have her blood drawn or get shots. She doesn't have to have surgeries. She doesn't have to worry about walking up a hill and not getting winded. She can climb a mountain now. She can do anything now, and she's happy. And I feel that in my heart. It's not this delusional thing or me trying to make myself feel better by making myself believe she's in heaven and not somewhere else. I truly believe it. It's like I feel it, that she is overjoyed and at peace, and that she wants that for me and she wants that for everyone else. And I shouldn't be selfish, because this is a dark, broken, sinful world. And while we struggle to live and survive and stay alive in this world, at the same time, where we go when we die, if we are believers in Christ, that cannot compare. This world cannot compare. And we really should be overjoyed for our mothers and our fathers and our brothers and sisters and grandchildren and nieces and nephews and friends and everybody that we love, as much as it hurts when they die. And it will always hurt. I'm not ever saying it's never gonna hurt. It always hurts, because there's that void, that loss. And we as humans, it is natural. That is what we do. We grieve the loss of those that we love. But some of us grieve a little longer than we should. We grieve and become in despair a lot more than we should. We make it about us without realizing it, because we don't have that person in our life anymore. We can't hear them laugh. We can't watch them dance. We can't see them acting goofy. We can't go on a trip with that person. We can't go to a flea market or a yard sale. And all of these things will now never be the same. I know, because I've done it. In this past 17 days, I forced myself to go to the flea markets, especially the one we always went to together. And it's just not the same. And I know it never will be. But I also know too that she loved it. And she would want me to continue to do it, because she loved it so much, and she knows that how much I loved doing it with her. So to say, I'm never going to a flea market again because my mom died and it just doesn't feel right, it's a dishonor to her. it's a dishonor to her to be sad or even afraid to sleep in the room that she died in. Because that was the day, that was the place and the moment when she went to heaven to be with Jesus. And now that I've been sleeping in there, I feel a sense of peace and comfort. So I just think that maybe if we stop thinking about ourselves and about our own feelings from loss, and just be happy for that person, knowing that they are with Jesus, that they are young again, they are beautiful, they have nothing to worry about. They don't even have negative thoughts that I can't even describe in words, because I've never been there. And there's no one on this planet who can adequately describe in words what heaven is like. But those people can, the ones that are already gone. And we should be happy for them. So I am happy for my mom. I'm going to miss her for as long as I live. I'm going to miss our moments together. I'm going to miss hearing her laughter, her calling me Jessie from across the room. I'm going to miss a lot of things, but I'm going to do it with a smile instead of a frown. And I have actually started doing that just recently, this past couple of days. And I realized that if I had to force myself. Okay, I'm not going to do it with sadness anymore. I'm not going to go down that dark road when I think about my mom or see something that reminds me of her. I'm going to instead smile and be happy for her. And it has made all the difference in the world. So I just recommend that to you if you recently lost someone that you love. If you know you're about to lose someone that you love, just pray over them, make sure that they're saved, do what you need to do. And then when they go, and be with them if possible. So many people die alone in nursing homes and hospice centers. And I didn't want that for my mom. I spent the first night there with her. The second, she was there 2 or 3 nights when I got there. The second 2 nights I spent at my aunt's, which is just right down the street, because all I had was a little tiny sofa, like a hard love seat to sit on or to sleep on. But those 2 nights were grueling for me. And at one point I asked my aunt, will you take me back, because I can't drive at night. I don't see well in the night. And she started to take me, and then she said, no, she's going to be fine. You need to get some rest. I was exhausted. I was almost delirious at one point. I might be exaggerating that a little bit, but I wasn't myself for sure. So my aunt talked me into staying, but that was like the hardest 2 days that I had experienced that I can recall of any days, because I was thinking, oh, what if she dies and I'm not there? And that was the last thing I wanted. But at the same time, I'm going to be honest with you, I was terrified that she would die in front of me. But even though I knew that it would scar me for life, or at least I thought it would, I did it anyway, because we decided, because we couldn't afford to keep her in the hospice center, that 3rd day or 4th day, I think it was, we brought her to back to my aunt's house, and I slept with her every night in that room. It was just a few nights, and I held her hand, fell asleep, and with my hand in hers, because she was laying on the bed and I was in a recliner next to her. And if I woke up and my hand wasn't in her hand, I would put it back really fast, and I would, let her know I was there. And then on the 7th night, she died a week after I got here. It was almost like we all knew that was when it was going to happen. because even my brother, one of my brothers, came really late in the night, which was unusual. It's almost like he instinctively knew that it was going to happen, because he came there and he slept in the chair that I had been sleeping in. My daughter was there too, and she brought another like long lounge chair into the room for me to lay on, and we all three were there with her that night when it happened. And I just didn't want her to die alone. And I know that some people don't, I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty for that happening to them and a loved one. I know that some people's situations, they just absolutely can't do it. But if you can, try not to leave them alone to die. It's like I said, so many people pass in hospice centers and nursing homes, and they have no one there with them. And it's just really sad. And yeah, I'm glad that we were there for my mom. So that is my episode for today. I needed to get that off my chest and talk about how I'm happy for her. She's gone, but I'm happy for her. And I'm not going to let myself be sad and depressed anymore. And just know that your family member doesn't want that either, just like my mom doesn't want that for me. May God bless you, your family, and your life.
Oh, why am I being gentle? You can't feel this.
I'm not even... Didn't even think about that. Yes,
Say good morning, Jessie. Say good morning, Jessie.
Yeah, I was thinking they could drive up, but...